Hey everyone, and welcome to another car review. Today, we're taking a look at the Porsche 911 Reimagined by Singer. For the rest of the review, we're going to call this car by its other more simple name, a Singer DLS. DLS standing for Dynamics and Lightweight Study, which is what this car is all about. Based on the 964 generation, the DLS is equipped with a ducktail wing, extended hood, and wide body kit from the factory, reminiscent of an old Carrera RSR, which you can find another nod to in the steering wheel. Weight has been shaved everywhere, as you can plainly see from the essentially full carbon interior and custom door cards, but under that coat of white paint on the outside is a full carbon exterior as well. Under the hood, trunk, is a naturally aspirated and still air-cooled flat 6 that makes 500 horsepower and revs to 9,000. Singer's motto is, "Everything is important," and that's a statement I can get behind. Let's take this beauty out for a stock test drive, see how it performs on the road, and see what that motto really means. The first thing we've got to point out here is, of course, the sound. For Forza standards, I believe that's about as good as it gets. The idle is strong and unique. As you rev, it's got a good rasp to it, and there's just a strong punch in every shift. It's not quite up to the caliber of some other unnamed racing game engine sounds, but it's good. The DLS also handles great. There's a lot of tire grip, and the stock aero performs pretty well, keeping the car planted through low and high speed corners. And the fact that this engine is naturally aspirated and pushes to 9,000 means we have great low-end torque as well as a strong, wide power band. You're really getting the best of both worlds here. Although 500 horsepower is a bit on the weaker side for a car in the middle of S1 class, the lightweight and phenomenal power band makes up for that entirely. Now, being rear-engined and rear-wheel drive, the DLS does have some unique handling characteristics, and for me, I think that's going to be the focus of my tuning. RR layouts are great under grip, but if things get a bit squirrely, it can be tough to get that light front end back under control. Right now, I'm thinking that I want to push the Singer into S2, but let's take it back to the shop and see what we can do with it. So the first thing I want to point out here is that there are no engine modifications available to you with the stock engine. Now you can swap in the twin turbo flat 6 or boost the stock engine with twin turbos or a supercharger, but we'll just have to see. That might mean I'm going to have to stick with an S1 tune, as the car review tunes really try to focus on enhancing the stock feel of the car, not changing it. Now moving into wheels, we can fit wider tires, which is good to see, and there are track width adjustments as well. For aero, we're going to be looking at just the base Forza options. I'm bummed that the front splitter still has that big red tow hook and the canards on there. It ruins the perfect front end on this thing. Luckily though, that's not the case in the rear, where we just get a tiny lip on the ducktail wing. Perfectly happy with that. Alright, so I'm going to take this Singer and see what I can do with it. Be back in a second. And we are back with an S1 road tune on the Singer DLS, pushing 625 horsepower and weighing in a bit over stock at 2,460 pounds. This was a very interesting car to build. We're very limited on what can be done to the car because it's already so maxed out. No engine upgrades, no suspension upgrades, you can't fit better brakes, etc., etc. So we've effectively maxed out the car here and added a supercharger as well to keep a similar power band while adding power across the board. The Singer was really responsive to small tuning adjustments, and like I mentioned earlier, my main tuning focus was going to be on compensating for the RR layout and improving front grip, and that has absolutely been accomplished. Just by taking the stock tune and stiffening the suspension and reworking the balance a bit, we've got a build that still has great smooth turn-in and no understeer, while also not being too snappy and light in the front, leading us to a car that still has that rear-engine, rear-wheel drive feel, but without the downsides. This car handles amazing, but here's what's so cool about it, is that it's easy to drive. I mean, right away the improvement over stock is there. Your slides get much more control, there's more grip all around, but just because it's more controllable doesn't necessarily make it much faster. To really squeeze the performance out of this car, you've got to drive it. I mean, knife's edge, pushing this car to the limit of its grip, and that's when it really shines. When it comes to driving around my test track, I'm usually pretty consistent. Out of the 4 laps it takes to get a time, I usually only sway by around 2 seconds or so. But my first lap in the Singer, compared to my last, were 8 seconds apart. That's never happened to me before. The car just kept getting faster as I learned how to drive it. You can brake so late, be on the power so early, and if you take the right line, fly through corners. This is an incredible car, and I haven't even mentioned its looks yet. Before we get to that and the rest of the Hokie score though, let's take a look at the Singer's time on our leaderboard. So in S1, our main competitor is the Camaro Z28, coming in at around 2 minutes 18 seconds. And from there, our slowest time is in the Continental GT at 2:20. Not a big gap in S1 times here, but this 911 reimagined by Singer lapped the test track in 2:15.985, smashing the record to become our fastest S1 build yet. Now let's see how it performs elsewhere by taking a look at the Hokie score. For me, the looks here are an easy 10. I think this is probably the best looking Porsche I have ever seen. I mean, just look at the way that rear diffuser perfectly accents and molds around the rear bumper of the car. It's something to behold, and that exhaust, just everything on this car fits perfectly and is the best it can be. So for looks, an obvious 10. Now for sound, listen, I'd give it a 10. It's probably one of the best sounding cars in the game, but on principle alone, I just don't think I can score any sound a 10 in Horizon 4. They're just all missing a certain dynamic and depth to them. Now customization really hurts this car. There is almost nothing you can do to it, and really the only reason I'm giving it a point over 1 is because there's track width adjustment, which for me is pretty important. Now, I think the fun score is pretty obvious here for me as well, so let's go ahead and skip into the competitive scores. For drag, it's lightweight and it's pretty rigid, but there's not many power modifications you can make, so it gets kind of a middle of the road score here. RR layouts just really don't make for great rally or drift cars, so it gets a pretty low score on both of those. However, since it was so good at race, I'm giving it a 9. The only reason it doesn't get a 10 is because it really does take a good driver to push it to its limit. Alright, now let's go ahead and bring up the right side of the board where we can see our flexibility bonus is a 4.6. Not a great score here because this is kind of a one-trick pony and there aren't many customization options. However, for the style bonus, it's an easy 5. This is hands down one of the most stylish and coolest cars you could possibly be driving. And that all leads us to a final score of 64.6, placing it around the top third of our leaderboard, which I actually think is a great score for a car that's kind of focused on one thing. The Hokie score definitely favors cars that are good at a wide range of things and highly adaptable and customizable. So for this car, which is very, very purpose-built, to get that high on our leaderboard, I think is something worth mentioning. So at the time of uploading this, you should still have a few days left to pick up the Singer. It is the 50% reward for the summer season. Absolutely, I recommend you getting this. It's a fine addition to your car collection. So everyone, that just about wraps up this episode of the car review series. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.